Well, I probably shouldn't even ask this question because I know what the answer is, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Have you ever experienced divine flow? Yes, yes, yes. You know what that feels like then, right? When you're in flow, a lot of people would say it feels peaceful. You feel at ease, joyful. Sometimes when we're in divine flow, we're in a state of beingness, right? So it might be some of those things I just named, or we might be doing something in the flow. And when we're doing something and we're participating in that flow, a lot of times people will say, they experience creative moments, right? Or productive moments. You feel like you're kind of moving on the wave of spirit to do whatever it is that you're in the activity of doing, something that kind of bypasses the thinking mind and is just an automatic action. I keep thinking about the Olympics because I've been watching it, and it's just such a good example of this series that we're in, these create laws, because it is that kind of instinctual thing that at high levels of achievement and ability that is displayed before us in the Olympics and with these athletes. And of course, it doesn't just take a physical action, right? There's all aspects of being, the physical, the mental, the emotional, that comes together in those amazing feats that are right before our eyes. So when you're in divine flow, it might feel as if you're channeling spirit. You know why? Because you are. That's exactly what you're doing. You're allowing spirit to flow through you. That's what this light language is about that we're going to get to experience. Carrie's coming because I experienced her workshop, and it was one of those, wow, you know how it is? Like you're kind of, you've read the books for a while, you've done the work for a while, and you get kind of on that plateau, and then something new comes along that you experience, and it's like, wow, I want my people to experience this. So I was thrilled to find out that she lives in Sacramento, and she was happy to come here and do a workshop. So yeah, I think you're all going to, well, whoever comes, feels guided to come will receive. So this idea of flow, I was thinking about a time when I was in ministerial school, and I had a lot of homework, I had a lot of stuff to do, and I also had a job at Unity Temple on the Plaza in Kansas City where I was the youth ministry assistant. And we had a pretty big youth department. Easter was coming up, and I needed to figure out what we were doing for Easter. That was my job. And so I had kind of thought about maybe we should do a play, but then I thought, oh, wow, that's a lot of work. How are we going to pull that all together? I don't really have the time for that. Blah, 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 right? Then in the midst of that, my partner said, hey, do you want to go to lunch today? And I thought, oh, I got so much to do, is the thought I was having. But I also knew in my heart that I needed the break. It would be good to have the connection. So I went with that. And we went to lunch, and I lost track of time. Hours lingered. We had a lot of laughs. We had delicious food, great conversation. So I finally get to the youth ministry office. It's pretty late now. I'm alone there. And I sit behind the computer, and this play just flows right out of my fingertips. And it was like done in no time, and I felt no need to edit, or it just, oh, good, this is complete. And in the end, it really ended up being something we all enjoyed, and it was fun to be a part of. So what was the learning in this experience, right? Because sometimes we just keep pushing through, right? That's not flow. That's pushing through. That's a lot of efforting. But if instead we take up our conscious partnership with Spirit, which we talked about last week, the first law of the Create series, and co-create, when we are in that flow, when we are in that kind of partnership, the flow comes and things become easier. And we act with more ease, and we accomplish really better. The results are better. The results were better of what I did than I think it would have been had I not taken that break, had I not honored my heart and the feelings and needs that were present in that moment. So that's really what the second law is about, the law of resonance. But let's take a look at all 6 of them just so you kind of know where we are and where we're headed. The first week was a law of co-creation. That's the C in the create laws. And this week is the law of resonance. That's the R in the create laws. So when we consider what resonance is, then let's look at actually just the law itself, the spiritual law of resonance. This is the law. The resonance you keep with the divine determines the quality of the reality you experience. The resonance you keep with the divine determines the quality of the reality you experience. So you can see that all of these, we're breaking down, basically we're working with our third principle in unity, which you can't work with alone, right? It works with all of them, especially the first two. But if these are new to you, that first principle is about the allness, right? The allness of our source and spirit that permeates the universe. The second is the I am, the divinity within us, the divine expression within us. And the third is that we co-create life. We co-create our experiences. We co-create the kind of world we want to live on, kind of relationships we want to have, the kind of experiences we want to have in our lifetimes. All of that is a part of creation. So basically, this Create series is a real concentration of expanding out the co-create life principle and saying, what are the nuances of all of this? What does it all look like when it comes together? And so today is resonance. What resonates? What resonates with you? We say that, don't we? That's an expression. That really resonates with me. And what do we mean? Well, we mean I relate to it, I sync up in understanding with that idea, and it's a little more than that. But to get to the more, let's go to the physical law of resonance, which is literally a law in physics. And in physics, resonance happens when the frequency of one object matches the frequency of another object. So this is the condition for resonance to happen. But resonance has not yet happened because it's only part of it. Because the second part is the amplification that happens. So when the match happens, there's an amplification or an increase that occurs. Maybe a lot of times in physics, they'll talk about motion or sound. That's like, in music, there's a lot about resonance, right? The tuning forks are put on these wooden empty boxes are called resonant boxes or resonance boxes. So it helps amplify the experience. So here's an example. You've probably done this before. Have you ever pushed an empty swing in a playground or seen it done, right? You probably know how it is that as you push the swing, if you keep kind of in the rhythm of the swing, it will naturally start to go higher. It's just you're staying in that same frequency, and you don't have to push any harder for it to go harder because it builds momentum. It automatically happens that it builds momentum. And so there is this sense of, in the law of resonance, that there is a divine alignment, but also there is an amplified experience. What does amplification mean? Increase, vastness, greatness, bigness, completeness, fullness. So really what is happening spiritually for us when we are in alignment with the divine is that bigness, that greatness, that fullness, completeness, the divine I am is being revealed, is being amplified, is being expressed, is being known to us, and then is being known through us and as us. So this law really gets to the core of what we talk about a lot in unity, of this divine truth in us, but it helps us access it and put it out into the world. So when we say, I resonate with that, we're not just saying I relate and my understanding is in sync with it. We are saying that, but we're also saying something deeper than that. Because when we say that I resonate with that, there's a sense of, there's a deep truth in me that is connecting with this. You know how that is when we really saying, wow, that really resonates with me. It's like, I know that truth and it's being revealed. There's something sort of knocking on the door of my heart and I'm opening to it and I'm remembering a truth. That's that deeper level of resonance that is the amplification, that is the increase part of what's going on there. So there is some awakening that happens in a way when we are in resonance. So one way to work this spiritual law of resonance is to ask yourself, what rings true for me? Working with that idea of the idiom rings true. That comes from Well, I've read two different things. One is that it comes from bells, and whether bells sound hollow or resonant, or have a certain kind of ring or pitch to them. It's also, there's some theories that say that when coins, there were a lot of counterfeit coins, people would take the coin and hit it against a rock to see if it sounded off or hollow, or if it sounded like a resonant, an authentic, in other words, coin. So there's an authenticity aspect or spiritual quality to resonance, which is about what is true for me, what rings true for me in my life. A lot of us might be, or some of us some of the time, I don't know, some of us all the time, who knows? But there is in our collective, in our human social fabric, a tendency sometimes to rely a lot on outer authorities and other people's opinions, right? To form our own, or to echo what somebody else has told us, who we maybe trust or look up to, or whatever the case may be. And you can find this in conversations of all kinds that we might have. I think of it when my sister and I have political conversations sometimes. And sometimes she'll text me something and she puts it in this way that feels like it's, to her, unfailing truth. And to me, it's like, I don't think there's any factual backup for that. And I'm sure I do the same. I'm sure it goes both directions, right? And then, so I'll say to her, hey, Kay, where did you hear that or read that? What's the source of the information? And she'll say, oh, my friend texted me, and it's almost always where the information comes from. And so it's like, did it come from her friend's opinion or a copy from social media post? I don't know. But the point is, that's not really what I want to know. What I really want to know is what rings true for her. Because that's where we connect, right? What rings true? I don't want to know what your friend said. I don't want to know the thing that you posted or that you got off some social media post. I want to know if it rings true for you. And if it rings true for you, tell me more about that. Because that's where we connect, right? That's how we want to be, I think most of us in relationship. We want to be in relationship at that level of being. And that is our authentic level of being. Not just some kind of, surfacey sort of passing around information with each other and getting upset about it. It's like, that doesn't really help us, does it? But how do we connect? How do we relate? And what is in your heart? What is feeling right for you or ringing true for you? So some of us tend, as I said, tend to give our power away, really, to whatever the outside authorities tell us. And this was the case, this has been the case always for human beings, right? Back in ancient Greece, in the temple of the Oracle of Delphi, there was the oracle, right? This was back in the early days of this. These were wise women that sat in the temples, often open air spaces, and people would travel from all over the place with their questions of the day. They had the same questions we have today. There were questions about their spouses and questions about their children and questions about their parents. There were questions about their service in the world and what they were doing for work. There were questions about their prosperity and their, financial well-being and their health. And, humans have human stuff, right? And that's what we want somebody to tell us what to do sometimes, don't we? We want some expert to tell us what to do. And there's nothing wrong with getting input. It's just that it's not very helpful if we just take the input and just believe it as so without any kind of filter that says, oh, that feels right. That rings true. That really, yeah, that's what I needed to know. Take the parts that work for us, right? But back there in ancient Greece at this temple of the Oracle of Delphi, there was something inscribed right over the doorway, 2 words that said it all. The oracle knew, and she said this to every person, the same wisdom was given no matter what the issue was that was brought, and no person really even had to cross the threshold to get the goodies. And those 2 words, anybody know what they were? Know thyself. Yes, very good. Somebody knows their ancient Greek. Know thyself. That is the path. That is the journey to know ourselves. How well do we know ourselves? Or are we busy kind of giving away and pleasing others to the point that we don't? I don't even know what I believe anymore, some people will say. I don't know how I feel. But turning within helps us get to that place, helps us to come to know ourselves. The very first spiritual book I found when I was put on the path to Unity, actually by my same sister who invited me to Unity, was the book by Shakti Gwen called Living in the Light. Anybody remember that one? Oh yeah, some of you are, oh yeah, we've been around for a while, haven't we? Yeah, both front and back cover were so worn and ripped, and I don't even know if I still have it. I hope I do, though, because it's one of those, right? It has that sentimental value. But she talks about what feels right, and how do you get to that feeling right, like what feels right within you. And she gives these 3 simple steps. The first is to focus awareness deep inside your being. Focus your awareness deep inside your being. So we just shift from the outer world. A lot of times that helps us to close our eyes, to go into a meditative state, and just focus deep inside our being. The second is to communicate by silently talking to the presence there. So there we come in contact with the presence that is within us, and we start a conversation. Maybe we express what we're thinking or feeling right now, or maybe we make requests, ask questions. It's helpful to bring in the help, right? Ask the questions, make the requests, and then finally just relax. That's probably the hardest one for us of all, right? Just relax. Let yourself open. Don't think too hard with your mind, she says, and it will begin to feel right. Something will begin to feel right. We'll begin to open and receive answers. And usually what comes is pretty simple and pretty much present moment kind of wisdom that we get when we follow these steps. It might be that we want to know what we should have for breakfast. It might be we want to know what to do this afternoon. And it might be we want to know the next step for our lives. So it can be any level of sort of bigness of the questions that we're holding, but the steps are always the same. Focus within, communicate with the presence, and relax. So that's how we get to what feels right within us, what feels right now in this moment. So we know that as we go in our life journey and our spiritual journey, that most of us don't experience a constant 100% experience of the law of resonance. We're not always in that space of resonance. We forget, we fall away, we get out of alignment. It's not that we can ever be disconnected from spirit, but of course consciously we make a disconnect somehow, some way. And so when I was first led from Chicago to Kansas City, I didn't really know what that was about, but I knew Unity was there. And so I started kind of trying on, what is this that I'm being led to? And I knew that there was a ministerial school, but boy, I did not resonate with that idea. That did not feel right to me. That did not ring true for me. But what did ring really true for me was the spiritual teachings of Unity and the principles I was learning about, and the idea that maybe I could learn enough of them that I could help others learn them too. The idea of teaching these principles, now that I could begin to resonate with, that I could find a match with, and that my frequency could start to match up with the vibratory frequency of this divine idea coming from spirit. So that's where we go with resonance. It's like, what part resonates with you? We often say, I want guidance, and we think we want revelation, but we don't want revelation because that would send us running the other direction, right? And that's kind of how I felt. It was like, minister, no way, Well, I'll just here to tell you that I do resonate with it now, just in case you were, getting a little worried. It's like, I don't know if I want a minister who doesn't feel resonant with what she's, yeah. where we were headed there. So, but really by resonating where I did, meeting myself where I was along the way, I finally did find myself at the doorstep of ministry, and it did start to feel right once I started doing it. And so it's that kind of journey that we can be on, right? You could slow down your breakfast choice to that point too. Wayne Dyer talks about pick up the banana, hold it, pick up an organic banana, pick up a regular banana, or a conventional. I love that term, conventional. It just means pesticides. But anyway, hold them both and see which one feels better for your body, or, whatever it is that, you can do that kind of resonance with anything that you're choosing throughout your day. And it's pretty fun to do it with more simple things because it practices us then when the big stuff comes along in our lives that we're trying to discern what's next for me and how do I move forward. So, there was a time when I was out of ministerial school, and that's the exciting time, right? Everybody's finding their ministries, and what are you going to do? What's next? But at the same time, my marriage was ending, and so I was heartbroken. And I didn't really have that get up and go and energy to go find that ministry, but I wanted to. So I was sort of fighting with myself, what am I going to do? I just can't stay here and wallow in my grief. And yet that is exactly what I needed to do, really. I found myself at the Chapel in the Woods on Unity Village's campus, which some of you are coming to Unity Village at the end of September, and you'll get to experience this very sacred and simple place. But I found myself on my knees, cry praying in the woods at the temple. Anybody know what cry praying is? Have you been in this position before? And just like, I had this calling and a passion for this, and yet I can't seem to hear anything or find my way. And it's like, Spirit knows. Spirit knows the right timing. I didn't know the right timing. I wasn't willing to give over to the right timing. But you know how Ecclesiastes 3 says, for everything there is a season, right? And a time for every purpose under heaven. So there's always timing. It's always about meeting ourselves where we are at any given moment. Spirit knew I needed more time to heal my heart. I needed more time to grieve. And I couldn't have been in a better situation. I was hanging out at Unity Village. I was praying with people at Silent Unity. What could be more healing? I was surrounded by spiritually minded people. I could go cry on the shoulder of my supervisor, who was also my friend. And, it was the right and perfect place to be. And so that anxiousness that we get of what's next is not really paying attention to what feels right. And what felt right, if I was really honest with myself and met myself where I was exactly where I was being led to do. Stay put. Stay put and just feel your feelings. And just let yourself grieve and let yourself be in this healing energy. Can you imagine if I was going to go out and apply for ministries? They'd be like, I don't know, there's something about her. She just feels really sad and kind of heartbroken, doesn't really have a lot of energy to provide us. Oh, yeah, let's pick her. Yeah. So, we got to know ourselves. We got to know ourselves because that's also how we're expressing in the world, and that there are certain times and places for everything that meets in alignment. When we meet with Spirit in alignment and we are in that amplified divine expression, then we are also in interaction with the people around us and in our lives in that kind of alignment. And when we're in that kind of alignment that they experience, they're going to start to say to things that you say and things you do when you're in that space, that rings true. That feels right. Guess what you just did? You helped them get into their second principle. You helped them get in and connect with the divine identity within themselves to begin to resonate themselves and get into a divine alignment. And then they begin to express more from that place. And this is how it goes. And so on and so on and so on. Before you know it, the whole collective consciousness has shifted into divine flow. Pretty good stuff, right? It happens one heart at a time, one soul at a time, one moment at a time, What feels right to me? What rings true for me? And following that, trusting that, is our key to working this law of resonance. That prayer that I had in the Temple of the Woods did a lot for me to realign me with that divine presence. And so for you, whatever that authentic expression is in any given moment, following it, allowing it, will bring you back into that resonance that you may have fallen away from or forgotten in some way. We all have, you each have, the tools within you to find your way and to find your way back if you found that you have strayed. So the question then really becomes things like, what fills my cup? What lights me up? What makes your heart sing? What feeds your soul? Living with these questions each day help keeping us in alignment, in that space of resonance. And so knowing ourselves is key. And if you aren't, if you can ask yourself now, like in my life, am I doing things that feed my soul? Am I doing things that make my heart sing? And if the answer is no, why not? What is stopping you? You need to know what barriers you're putting up so you can help remove those barriers and allow yourself to get back into the flow that brings you joy, that brings you happiness, that brings you peace, that fires you up, gets you passionate about your life and what is next for you and what your day is like today and tomorrow and how you're contributing to the world. All of that happens in this very authentic way. What rings true? What's feeding my soul? What makes my heart sing? Oh, I haven't done that in so long, you might think. I love doing that thing. I love being in that space. I love that special place in nature that I used to go on, that route or whatever it is. I haven't been there in a while, and that always makes me feel connected again. Go. Make it your priority. Make it the thing that matters most, because it does matter most. Because when we do these things, all the other pieces come into place that we've been talking about that come with the resonance. So trusting your feelings and your needs too, just a reminder, needs are universal things. It's not like I have a need for Sally to call me. I have a need for Joey to ask me out on a date. No, those are just, outer desires that we might have. But what's the need? Connection. What's the need? Love. What's the need? Romance. What's the need? Ask yourself, what am I needing? And then go from the inside out, and how can I fulfill that need for myself? You might be surprised at the answers that come. Maybe you take yourself on a date to an art museum, and suddenly that fulfills some of those needs that you had. Or, I don't know. You know what feels right to you. You know what rings true for you. But you won't know unless you're honest with yourself and meet yourself where you are. And then it opens up the way for all of this to happen in terms of the divine, because the divine's just waiting around. It's like, I wish she'd ask me something. Wish I could participate in her life. It'd be going a lot better, And so it's the ask and receive idea, right? So that we can be in this flow. So I don't know if I have anything else to tell you. The resonance, this sense of resonance, you can imagine it maybe like a symphony. And your life in resonance is like a symphony. It's like the music, the words, the rhythms, it all goes together. There's this sort of harmonic feel to it all. There's a wave to it all when we are in that place of resonance. And so following our heart and soul gets us to that place. Using the law puts us in divine flow and puts us in that divine amplifying expression that helps change the world. So let's affirm this for ourselves to work with this week in this second of the laws as we move through co-creation. I invite you to say this with me. I live in divine flow and amplify my divine expression by honoring what rings true and feels right to me. And so it is.